I think one of the things we heard earlier was around the tough venture environment that we're in. And we heard Styx talk about getting to profitability. When I launched VentureFuel, the name actually comes from there's a better way to fuel your venture. And that was the advice I gave to a startup early on before I knew what venture capital was. And I said, you need to go get deals with corporates. You need to prove that this is a viable business that someone will pay money for. And the 4 people coming to the stage have done more to make that a reality from the corporate side than almost anyone I can think of. I've been fortunate to be a thought partner with Danielle Cohn for over 5 years at this point when she launched Comcast Labs. Shira Averbuch, who's joining, is my partner in crime at VentureFuel, and Limor and Lizzie from Mastercard and LG. And they're going to have a conversation about corporate startup partnerships and how that fuels the ecosystem. So Danielle, come
on. First, I just want to thank Fred and the amazing team, Caroline and everybody at Rogue for having us all here today. I just have to give a shout out specifically to Fred, who I find is, one of, I think there's maybe 6 guys in this room. But he would be in this room no matter what. And I want to give a shout out to the men who show up at things like this and support the women, the Rogue women in the room. So quickly about me, my background's marketing, communications, business development. I was the CMO equivalent for the Philadelphia Convention Visitors Bureau for about 20 years. After that, I pivoted into innovation, and I built and led Comcast NBC Universal Lift Labs, which the operating partner is now VentureFuel. I actually brought them in, and then I decided to leave that role about 18 months ago and start my own thing. So I do startup and corporate advising. That's my little nutshell. But I wanted to take this moment to really let the panelists introduce themselves. And so they're going to each tell us who they are and what they do in their role, and also what's an innovation focus area that's most inspiring to them. Lizzie, do you want to start?
Okay, I will.
Awesome.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lizzie Naylor. I'm the Global Platform Manager for StartPath, which is Mastercard's startup engagement program. We help later stage companies scale and connect them to our network of customers and partners all around the globe. So it's a global program. My background is in government affairs, because I know we're going to talk about backgrounds a little bit later. So I started my career in lobbying and healthcare, and then went to business school and switched into fintech. So a big switch. But yeah, I'm based here in New York. Our office is just in Flatiron, and thank you so much for having me with you guys today. Oh, and an innovation area. I think because of my original background in healthcare, an area that I'm hoping for disruption, I guess, I'm hoping for innovation is in healthcare payments. You would be surprised how many bill payments and transactions still occur via check and cash, particularly in the US, which is expensive and slow and fraud and all of these problems. So when I see companies come across our desk that are looking to innovate in that area, I always kind of perk up a little bit.
Great. Limor.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for inviting to be here. Great to be here and speaking with all of you. So I'm with LG Nova. We're an innovation unit at LG Electronics. I'm director of strategy over there. And what we're doing a venture studio model with a twist, where we work with startups. We invite them to come in, and by the way, we are focused on digital health, climate tech, and also AI, AR, plus VR for enterprise training and education. If you have a startup in those spaces, please visit lgnova.com. We have a rolling engagement program. And what we do, I'm not going to speak too long, but what we do is we actually work with businesses to create new ventures for LG. That is our entire mission. And I also happen to head up the Clean Tech Task Force, so happy to speak to anyone about clean tech. And in terms of areas that I'm interested in, and by the way, I'm a corporate attorney that got into technology a long time ago, was in the video games industry, was in the theme park industry, always looking at the next cutting edge of technologies. And so I'd say what I'm always interested in is how do we enable human beings to be their most creative selves? So I look at the infrastructure. So it's all, for me at the moment, it's about energy and telecom, making sure that the fundamentals are taken care of so that people can then go from there. Then I also am looking at AI because I believe that AI is an enhancer. It's that matrix plugin that goes and all of a sudden you're like, oh wow, I can do anything. And so how do we take it from there? And how do we make use of these tools, these technology tools, to enable us to be the most best creative, generating people that we can as individuals and collectively?
Love that. Shira.
Yeah, I love those. So hi, everyone. It's so good to see you all. My name is Shira Averbuch. I'm the VP of Innovation and Partnerships at VentureFuel. So I oversee the team that works with all of our enterprise clients, like the Comcast of the world, to identify startups for them to partner with. So we run programs like pilots, which we'll talk a little bit about, accelerators, and research strategy. An area that I'm particularly interested in is actually a kind of a build off of what you two said. AI, you can't deny its power, but two specific areas in healthcare. So AI's ability to have health outcomes, drug discovery, rapidly enable a lot of the patient experience, I think is hugely impactful, and I'm really excited to see it come to life more. And then the second is AI in the future of work. So how it enables individuals, especially like folks on my team that we work with, how they can speed up what they're doing, and then thinking about what that means in 1 year's time, 5 years' time, 10 years, what does work actually look like? So really fascinated to see where that goes.
I love it. I'm most excited about care, the care space, specifically aging in space, as well as multi-generational housing, and the travel space where I came from, and just all of the innovation that's out there in travel to make it easier for all of us. All right, first question, Limor. So in the face of budget cuts and not invented here mentality, and if you work in large companies or small, you know what I'm talking about, what strategies have you found most effective in fostering a resilient mindset or fortitude among leaders and teams in your organization? And how, like, in other words, like, how do you keep innovation in the forefront and not fall back on legacy systems and things like that?
Yeah, thanks. And I have my notes here because there are key points that I want to make sure I get to. But I'll say, first, I'll give you context. So LG Electronics, because I think it's important and I think it's appropriate for all corporates and corporates doing innovation, but LG Electronics is a 60-year-old company, South Korean, that went from zero to over $60 billion a year over the course of those 60 years, which is rather extraordinary. And we're part of a larger corporate called LG Corp that has a number of other different factions. Now, why do I say this? First of all, as you may already know, most corporate innovation programs fail. And they consistently fail for the same reasons. Because ultimately, the corporate is going to go to default. Why do they go to default? And that means they go to default, meaning they start becoming controlling. They start becoming, oh, you know, you need to be like us. You need to answer to the same business KPIs as we're following as a corporate. And I can say, as someone who is dealing with this every single day, that try not to do that. So, because it kills innovation. So I think there's this phenomenal tug of war between having this phenomenal corporate behind you with all these resources and all this money, and oh my God, we're getting paid to do innovation. I mean, how cool is that, right? Because we're fortunate as a startup, and I've been on the startup side as well. You know, you're literally putting your own money, and you don't know if you're going to eat the next day. But in a corporate environment, we have this capability. But at the same time, we don't know. You need to balance between that corporate. So one of the key things is to speak their language. So we heard yesterday, earlier, regarding being rigorous. You need rigor in your KPIs. You need to really understand their language, what is of value to them, and speak that language to them continuously, but couch it within innovation. The reason we're doing this is to increase your KPIs, to have you, whatever it is, increase your revenue, sell more product, et cetera, et cetera. At the same time, you also need to manage that messaging with them so that they never lose sight of the fact that you are, in fact, an innovation center. And to translate that for them, why do you need innovation to hit those KPIs? And to manage up, you need to manage up to the corporate all the time, never stop. I think one of the things when we're talking about resilience or being fortitude is the perpetual messaging that needs to happen on both sides. And then for the innovation unit itself, I think one of the most difficult things to do is to make sure that it stays innovative. That corporate filtering down, which is going to happen, does not kill the innovation spirit, and that it's always still about acceleration and speed and environment, which we all know in the corporates is really difficult. And I would say that's another thing that we contest all the time. But anyway, those are my initial first few comments.
And just as sort of a follow-up to that, Lizzie, to get in sort of the second part of that, which is, how do you at Mastercard and in your work, how do you frame up what you do to ensure that it never comes off or is perceived as innovation theater? How do you, what are some of the data points and other things you do?
Yeah, definitely. And I really agree with Limor, right? We can struggle sometimes because, so StarPath sits within the product organization at Mastercard, and we're really product driven. So every company that we bring into the program, we make sure there's some sort of hypothesis where we can work with them. They are producing something we don't have, or maybe we can go to market together. But so getting buy-in from the product teams is incredibly important, and there's always a top line level of interest, like, oh, this is really interesting. But again, when it comes down to KPIs and personal objectives, like, how do you really marry the two and show business units and product teams that we're actually trying to help you, reach your KPIs and produce better products and go to market faster and, reach this customer you've been struggling to reach. So I think that's part of it. And then two, it's just a part of my day-to-day is meticulously tracking the commercial deals that we're producing for the company, like any other business unit, right? At a corporation, you have to tie in what you're doing back to the corporate strategy, back to the bottom line. And so, last year in 2023, startups in our program signed over 50 commercial deals with Mastercard and our customers. And we tell everyone who will listen. We, scream it at the executives. We show the revenue that it's driving. And key to that, too, is one thing we're starting to better quantify is the shadow revenue, I think, for corporates as well, is something not thought about. What are the cost savings that we have by partnering with this startup so we don't have to actually develop this product on our own that will take us 10 years and cost millions of dollars? Or how does partnering with this startup strengthen our relationship with a financial institution in a market that is new to us? What are the learnings that we have? So also trying to capture that as well. And a final point too, just something that StarPath has been as adapted as our strategy, right? As an innovation program, that means we constantly have to innovate. We can't be still either. So in 2021, we launched this track strategy. So we actually have 5, about to be 6 different programs within the StarPath program. And some of those are product driven and some of those are driven by other qualifiers. So for instance, we have an open banking focused program that only works with startups in the open banking space, which is huge in payments. We have one focused on crypto and digital assets. My colleague, actually, Rashida Bob, is here. She leads our In Solidarity track, which is for underrepresented founders in the U.S., so making sure that we're tapping into the talent in that community. Small business services. So we have a variety of different tracks that also help us, dive deep into high growth areas and start those partnerships sooner that'll benefit both us and the startups in the long run.
And actually, some of the things you mentioned earlier, I think from a startup if you're a startup founder in the audience, thinking about how you frame your value to the corporate is so important. We're going to, even if it isn't about net new revenue, it's more about we can save X. Understanding your narrative also, I think, helps founders.
Danielle, may I ask?
Yes, please.
I think what you were saying, Lizzie, is really interesting. I think as much as startup founders might also want to be semi-delusional, this same rigor that we're talking about in the corporate context, I offer that it is appropriate for the startup context as well. You need to be able to actually say, we are doing X, just as we heard from the founders from Styx. We are doing X, and it's leading us to profitability this way, or to gain something in this way. We're doing this strategic partnership because it's going to lead us down this goal path, and here's our path, here's our timeline, here's how we're going to hit it, and these are the actions that we're taking in order to get there. I think the same kind of rigor is appropriate. So I just wanted to translate that for the startup founders in the audience.
Yeah, that's a great point. Shira, in your experience of guiding and advising corporate partners, like you did with me at Lift Labs, how do you help organizations strike a balance between risk-taking and ultimately responsible decision-making so that the partnerships are successful?
Yeah, it's such a good question because it's not just in corporate startup partnerships that this tension point lives between risk-taking and responsible decision-making. Since business started, this has been a tension point. And so a lot of what we think about is how do we enable quick tests of these startups and new technologies to prove points? And to both of your points, how do you use the rigor of, hey, I'm going to do a low-risk test, run a quick pilot, co-develop something net new that in a month or 2 months with a little bit of budget is going to actually prove out results that we can then communicate, because I hear storytelling as a theme, to the rest of our business units, our executives. So something that we do kind of on repeat is help our clients, and in the units that they sit, run these quick tests so that the emerging innovation, the startup that on paper looks a little risky, you now can see, hey, here's the revenue that it drove in market, or here's the impact that we saw. And then also we work a lot with our point of contacts, our stakeholders at the enterprise, as well as the startups, to tell the story of not just what they accomplished in the 6-week pilot, but what is the business impact? What's the long-term vision of, if we now commercialize this in a big way, here is the increased revenue, the new product. So a couple examples, because I like to give examples to ground us. We worked with the nonprofit AARP Foundation. Actually, the president was here last year at this event. We worked with them to identify startups that could help them amplify the efforts that they have to take older individuals with low income and give them access to benefits and financial support. And we found a startup that was doing this in a unique way, using technology for this older population, which they didn't think that it could really drive enough value. But with a quick test, a little bit of budget, within a month or 2, they saw a 5x increase in those older individuals getting access to SNAP benefits. And then we're able to double down because we were able to show, hey, through this short test, this technology, this startup is really working for you. So now they've doubled down and it's grown. And similarly, we do this in spaces that are hyper-technical, so material science partners where we bring in emerging technologies and we actually run experiments. We ran 25 experiments for one of our clients last summer, which resulted in a lot of outcomes that the CEO and board looked at and said, we're now going to fund 5 JDAs, so we're going to sign additional deals, and we believe that this is going to have a market impact of X billions of dollars in a couple of years. So I give those examples to show that, yes, some of these startups on paper, if you were just going to invest in them and it was just an equity play, may seem risky, but when you can do a quick test, you have fact-based and rigor-based decision-making that can lead to real business outcomes and, to your points on KPIs, that are attached directly to business outcomes.
And you can de-risk the investment before you make it.
I was just going to add too, and maybe this is cheating a little bit, but I think sometimes risk-taking is responsible decision-making, especially for huge corporates that have to stay relevant when there's so much disruption happening across different industries, right? So particularly in payments, for a legacy credit card company, alternative payment methods, paying account to account, that's a huge threat to our business. So if we don't pay attention to that area and we don't invest and we don't find partners, the outcome's going to be, way worse for us than if we actually find a way to figure out how to work with these players. So just wanted to add.
Yeah, and I think one of the key things also to what needs to make it successful is you need the leadership of that corporate to actually have that vision. So it's the CEO of LG Electronics that actually founded our unit when he was the CSO. So you need that, and to also then, of course, remind them and show that. But yeah, it's showing why do they need the risk, because frankly, they're dead in the water. And they know they're dead in the water. They just need to be reminded of the fact of why innovation, because it's scary, and they're looking over the cliff, and you're like, oh my God, we forgot what this was, because we were a startup, but we're no longer a startup, and and you need to help them along.
And on the flip side, so how are you continuously, and anyone can answer this, continuously building trust in the startup ecosystem so that startups actually want to come to you? And if you aren't necessarily writing a check, but your value is really becoming a first customer or a 10th customer. So give some examples of building trust in the ecosystem. And Lizzie, you do a lot of that in your work. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy to, especially because we have a Start Path fund, but we invest really in less than 10% of the companies that come through our program. So it's not the core of what we do. And I would say it's really around building a reputation of, we're not just trying to sell you a product that we've decided is good, but going to market together, developing together, and leveraging each other's technologies. And I'll give an example of that, but two other things I hear all the time from our founders is, even though we're not a major investor, having a corporate logo often helps startups really build credibility and either get investment or secure other commercial deals. So we hear that a lot. And I also think, too, being a large global enterprise, we have a lot of startups come to us because they're trying to enter a new market, and we have an office there, and we know the local regulations, and we can really provide guidance to them in that way. So I would say those are two reasons why I think it's worth it for startups or founders to work with corporates. And then I would just say, as an example of building together, last year we had a company come through the program with an amazing female founder. It's called Opti. Her name is Natasha Zernamer. It's based out of Singapore, but basically what they do is they're a single point of integration for merchants to connect with a suite of digital payment services. So I think they offer over 85 buy now, pay later integrations and digital wallets and all of these, really innovative ways for consumers to purchase from retailers online. And as we know, this is increasingly important because more commerce is being conducted online, more items are being bought, and consumers are changing how they want to spend their money. So merchants and retailers need to be able to accept more payment methods, right? So Mastercard signed a global deal with Opti last year that integrates our own omnichannel payment gateway services into the Opti suite. So we're now one of the payment services that they integrate into. And then not in return, but together we now offer Opti to all of our merchant banks globally to offer to their merchants, right? So we really are growing together. And I just think that's a good example of those are the types of relationships we want and we're trying to drive.
Great. Do either of you want to share an example?
Sure. So one of the startups that's come through us is Charger Help. Charger Help is a company that specializes in supporting EV chargers and doing the maintenance. And it really starts with a woman who worked in the business for 20 years, literally going from charging station to charging station, maintaining it, seeing what the issues were, moving up, working in ChargePoint, et cetera, and said, you know what, we can actually also develop software to help this, et cetera, et cetera. So now she's fantastic. And she already has done her first round. She's now doing a 20 million second round, B round. And so what do we been able to offer? So a little bit is working and developing a POC so we can prove something out with her. Another is introducing her to different angel networks, and so because we have this capital alliance, we also do investment. We do some small investments, so we're looking at doing that. But I think it's also what is important with the startups is to actually offer them possibly kind of things, being that relationship with a corporate, being part of our conferences, introducing people where we can, involving them in what we're doing, but also then really having transparent conversations with them, telling them where they are, where we are, what we can do together, and really just being honest. I think that is one of the best things that we can do with a startup.
Wait, really quickly, Charger Help is a StarPath company too, actually.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's great.
The only thing I'll add is just to echo this idea of, now of course I'm forgetting it. No. Yeah, I would just echo that. Okay, yes, this idea of the logo that Lizzie said and the case studies And that is the proof point for founders. That's where they're going to their next enterprise, they're getting their deal, they're going to raise their next round. So we are lucky enough to sit in a situation between a lot of enterprises where founders want to talk to VentureFuel, which is great, and I can't always offer the exact perfect fit, but the opportunity to work with an enterprise is really a way to fuel your business when funding is slowing down. And so I would say, the ecosystem is bright in terms of the types of work that these two are doing. And for a founder, it's really about that logo and that case study that they can bring to other arenas that they're trying to pitch into.
So all four of us work in similar types of roles, but we have extremely different backgrounds. And when you mirror us with, say, men in our roles, they also have very specific backgrounds. Lizzie, can you talk a little bit about the unique value proposition that women have in corporate innovation?
Yeah, definitely. And I was excited about this question because I work with a great team, and there are a lot of women on my team. And then I was kind of disappointed because I did the math and it's only 60% women. I thought it was going to be higher, but it's still pretty good. But it's interesting because then I was thinking about everyone's backgrounds, and most of the men on our team come from M&A, investment banking, traditional VCs. And some of the women on our team have VC and accelerator backgrounds, but maybe it's in a different industry, or they come from sales, or we have a few members of our team that come from the product development organization at Mastercard. I mentioned earlier my first career was in government affairs, so I think having all of these different backgrounds is really valuable, and I'm not sure why that correlates to women or men, or if it does, but I like to think at least one of the reasons is women being able to pivot really well and highlight our skill sets and how they translate across different industries and different roles. So for instance, even though I started in government affairs, that means I have a great background in stakeholder management. It means when companies come through, I might be more likely to notice any reputational risk that they might have, or maybe think about the regulatory environment. And then, my product colleagues can think about end user experience or, integration feasibility with Mastercard. And so we all kind of bring, different perspectives to the table, which I think makes for better partnerships that are more likely to succeed, because we're kind of covering all the different bases.
Either of you want to add?
Yeah, I'll just add, so we also have a team that's 60% plus women, and I think when you think about what we're doing, we're solving business problems, which are people problems, and we're also connecting the dots. And I think, I don't want to overgeneralize, but I think a lot of times women in life and business have this ability to listen, see two sides of a conversation. Hopefully that was a good laugh. And then connect those dots. And so where we sit, we're looking at a business challenge, a large enterprise that's trying to innovate. We see all of these solutions, these founders that are coming up with these solutions, and we're connecting the dots, and then we're communicating them, right? So that's another piece where the women from our team, you both have these variety of backgrounds, but I think the core skill sets of being able to listen, distill information, synthesize it back in the language that needs to be used to storytell are things that we can bring to a table. And I would encourage you all, those who are interested in roles like this, to think about how, even if you haven't had the traditional background, the experiences that you have had in business or life translate to these types of skills. And that's what the roles that we sit in are really looking for at the end of the day.
Especially founders, too, who are sitting here and maybe want to pivot into this space as well. That's a very unique point of view. Lenore?
Yeah, so I'd like to build on what both of you have said. So I think when we're thinking about fortitude in this area, and what makes women, I'm going to say, I think, is our whole-brainedness. So when we look at things, we're looking at things from both sides of our brain, and I think that's why we're able to draw the lines and to pull things together. And it's because of our positions, even our traditional positions as we've been through the generations, which have been frustrating. But what have we been doing? We've been managing everything, right? We're managing the home, we're managing the family, we're managing the budgets, We're actually the corporate executives of the lives of our families, traditionally, and often, frankly, particularly in Renaissance time, et cetera, we were running the whole business. We were running the massive households. Millions of quote-unquote dollars were passing, or pounds, or whatever country you're in, lira, were passing through this household. So actually, we've been trained for this over generations. And so when we're looking at, and also I was just looking at some stats. What does diversity bring to corporates from a bottom line? 19% increased revenue if you're more diverse, because you need those diversity of mindsets. And so when we're looking at what makes us maybe unique, and I will now just bring in something that also Charlotte was saying, know yourselves. I bet if and also, I'm sorry, I'm going to draw a couple of threads. One, I thought that the speech in Barbie that America Ferrara said was really amazing, because bottom line, we're being pulled by everyone else's opinion of us, right? But what we need to do is just take a moment, sit with yourself, and I bet if you do that, you will know instantly who you are. Be who you are. Show it, bring it forward, because you have the knowledge, and also then know what you don't know, and bring the people around you to do that, because you know how to do that, right? That's what you do as a woman. And I think, and if you don't know that skill, it's okay, get coached. Figure it out. You know how to figure things out. Trust yourself, know yourself, be yourself, and that's what I would say.
Yeah, and you can intentionally make decisions, right? So at Lift Labs, we had 80% of our team were women. We had more than 50% of all of the companies that we ever invested in were women, led by women or people of color. And that was something very intentional. So as you, hopefully some of you become investors yourselves or already are, you make those decisions. And as you build your businesses, you decide who you're hiring. We are wrapping up. I just want to remind everyone that rogue women are those who display a degree of independence and fail to follow an expected script. I looked that up online, and some of the explanations of the word rogue, I was like, ooh, there's got to be a positive in there. So I pulled out the positive. But I think we may have time for one question. Oh, we have time for questions. Fred.
We had somebody at a previous gathering say there's no good time for a corporate to innovate. In that when the money is tight, right, we have to double down on what we've done. When the money's going really well, they're like, well, we have to keep pouring fuel on the fire that's working. Why would we ever convert our funds? If you all had one sentence, an elevator ride to pitch how to keep your group or expand it, how would you pitch it to the CEO of Mastercard or LG?
Get on that elevator.
I guess I would just say you have to win with fintechs. I mean, the world is changing and everything is digital and moving online. And also as a global company, payments look so different in every country, in every market. Some are cash based, some are credit card based, some have skipped that and are using, WePay and Alipay. So if you really want to compete, you have to win with fintechs. Otherwise, you're going to be obsolete.
And I would say that we have a relationship with our partners, we have a relationship with our customers. If we want to keep that relationship fresh, it needs to be paid attention to, it needs to be listened to, and you always need to be there with it. And our audience, those customers, they're not sitting by the wayside and waiting. They are continuously innovating, doing new things, their lives are changing, et cetera, et cetera. For us to stay with them, if not ahead of them, we need to continuously innovate. So our customer is always innovating every single day of their lives. They're always faced with new issues, and we can be there. And I'll say, just LG is Life is Good. We're all about the solution of supporting life in an impactful way. That is literally what we're about. And if we're going to do that, then we need to stay innovative. And so, but you know what? They need to be reminded. They need to, because you're right. They're going to default to exactly what you challenge them with.
And I used to just say, Kodak. You got to challenge your status quo.
Yeah. Or I would not say this in an elevator to any of our clients, but evolve or die. That's the reality.
I love that. Is there another question? Yes. Hi.
We are trying to increase our business partners across Comcast. And so one of the challenges that we're facing is, so Lizzie, you said scream out the results. So how do you avoid screaming out those results into a void? And increasing that in a way that increases engagement?
How do you scream your results of the Lift Labs program? Hello. So that people listen and that information is absorbed and resonates.
Yeah, it's a good question, because sometimes maybe I am shouting into a void, who knows. I would say that you always want to tie any sort of results or KPIs or objectives, like you add that, and what does this mean to you type of tie-in, because, oh, great, we drove $10 million in revenue, but in what area, and what does that mean for your business unit and your product and your go-to-market strategy? And one thing that I try to do at StarPath, and the whole team does, right, is sometimes you have to approach the business teams like, how can we help you today? Like, what's the problem you're facing? And, what are the use cases you're really struggling with? And let us go out and source companies and bring them to you instead of, we found this cool company and we think they're so awesome, will you please work with them? And then again, hopefully when there is a success story, building out that case study and adding the why does this matter and what does this mean for you, in addition to whatever impressive revenue or KPI you're reporting.
Maybe you can build off of that. So case studies, how do you keep them fresh? How do you grab these? I know you mentioned, bringing it back to what's important to them, but how do you present that information that really grabs people's attention and they want to listen, maybe outside of the
Yeah. I don't know if either of you.
How do you present case studies in a way that resonate?
Well, this may be cheating because we are working with Christina and Takia on this, but it may sound fuzzy a bit or soft, but getting people's hands on a technology, having them have an experience, bringing the conversation to life. So things like a demo day where leaders can go and actually test and play with or hear from customers how an innovation is impacting them and their experience. Things like a panel where you discuss the case study and you bring it to life and you make it relevant, like the so what that Lizzie was talking about. Those are tactics, because if you put information, a case study on a PDF and you send it in an email, very few people will look at it. So bringing it to life and making it an experience has been successful for us. Obviously, you have to get the right people in the room, but that has been a tactic that's been successful for us.
All right, one last question, anyone? No? Well, thank you, panelists, and thank you again for having us today.
Thank you.